Are you familiar with the forgetting curve? So, the forgetting curve is a model that shows how information is lost over time when there's been no attempt to retain it. And here's what the forgetting curve tells us. Here's what we've learned from it, that within about 7 days of being exposed to new information, if there's no attempt to retain it, we'll forget about 90% of the information that we learned. And most of that happens within the first 3 days. What does that mean for eye care? I think it's something we have to consider when we're educating patients. So we were taught to be very thorough when we educate patients. And a lot of ODs have a lot of pride in the amount of time and the amount of information they share with patients. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think we have to balance that with the reality of this forgetting curve. Is there a such thing as overeducating? Do we need to find a balance between how much information we give people in the exam room versus giving them so much information that they're not going to retain, that they're just going to be overwhelmed with the amount of information that we give them? This becomes really important in long-term care when we're asking the patient to do something that involves changing something, a behavior change, adopting a new habit, a lifestyle change. We only get to see them, a lot of patients, once a year. And the reality is it's a lot of times longer than once a year. So we depend on them to be proactive with self-care. So research has also found that if people don't retain the information, their odds of continuing to act on that information, it goes down significantly. So what I think we need to consider is, do we need to reframe the conversations that we're having with patients in the chair to maybe just use that as an opportunity to share the most compelling information, the most relevant information? What's the main things that you want them to remember when they leave that exam room? Could other information be shared maybe at a follow-up exam, or given in a handout, or something they can read, or a link to a website? And I know the desire is there to spend a lot of time sharing a lot of information. And it's a tough one for a lot of people. It was tough for me too. But I think finding that balance is better for the patient. So if we're talking about sticky messages and something that they're going to remember for a long time, I want to talk in the next video about stories. And I think a lot of times as doctors, we share a lot of information. We dump a lot of information on people. Could we sort of repackage that information into stories? And stories have been scientifically shown to be something that we actually retain. People retain much longer. I want you to think TED Talk here, and we'll get more into that in the next video.